Welcome back, everyone, to History with Salty B, episode 5. I hope you enjoyed episode 4.5, which was a collection video and reveal of the new bookshelf. It just looks fire. And I said that I had a few books I wanted to get, but I was mostly done collecting books at the mass that I've been getting them at. And that's mostly true because I actually just got back, like fresh from the bookstore. They were doing a sale. Get 3 books, and the cheapest one is free. So buy 3, get 3 for 2. And I went in there. I was in there for like 45 minutes, and I came out with nothing. I didn't get anything because there's really nothing there that I really want. There were a few more of the this set, the Black Death. It's the Folio Society Darkest History set. And it's the Black Death, the Great Plague, the Spanish Inquisition, the Monks of War, the Elizabethan underworld, and the Princes in the Tower. Those are I think there's 6. And I've got 1, and I was going to buy 3 more, the Monks of War, Spanish Inquisition, and the Princes in the Tower. And I had all 3 of them, and I was just like, you know what? Like, for $60? Because they were $30 each, so one of them would have been free. I was just like, man, like, I'm good. I didn't get them, so that is like official now. Like, I'm not getting as many books as I have been because I'm really I'm good. There is a new bookstore though. You might notice something up there that I'll show you in a second. There's a new bookstore about a 40-minute drive away that I went to once, and I got a nice little set that I'll show you in a second. But first, the haul, I'll end with that. So we'll start off with the first book that really is about my own area. I've got British Empire here. I've also got, where is it? British Empire and I guess History of the English-speaking peoples. Those both kind of involve my area, being British Columbia. But now I have, by Margaret A. Ormsby? Margaret A. Ormsby, British Columbia, A History. It's got the kind of coat of arms on it there, and it came with a paper copy of like the government. This is like it becoming its own thing. It came with that, and a paper copy of the Union of the Union Proclamation. Yeah, so that's cool, and they're just in here, and it's basically the history of British Columbia from the 1860s into I think it's like it's like World War II-ish. And yeah, so it was $15, and I just saw this. I was like, man, like I've got all this world history and stuff, ancient history, but I don't have anything about like my own, where I live, British Columbia, Canada. So yeah, there's stuff about my own city here, and about it being an outpost and how it related to the British Empire and then what it became. Got hold on, got a map in here for you. Boom, map of British Columbia. So very cool, $15, and I was like, yeah, that's a great addition to the collection. Then we have up here as well, I wanted to get something like this. I knew I would, and I was just kind of waiting for the right version to kind of fall into my lap. We have William Shakespeare, The Complete Works by Classic Club. And yeah, it's every single William Shakespeare work. Here, I'll see if I can pull up the... there we go, there's the table of contents. So it's all of Shakespeare's stuff. There's the rest of them. So I was flipping through it, and it's just like, yeah, this is all of Shakespeare. I've read some Shakespeare back in high school and stuff. You know, it was mandatory. A lot of the there's all the kings: King Henry V, King Henry IV, Henry the Sixth, I think, as well, Richard the Third. So really cool to just have a nice small every single, because I didn't need individual Shakespeare things. This is perfect. And this was also $15. It also is the exact same red as the A History of the English-Speaking Peoples. So they look so good next to each other. And the last thing that I'm going to show you today is this. Now, this is Edward Gibbon, The History and the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. I have been listening to a 130-hour audiobook, and it's like an old audiobook too. It's recorded back in like the 60s or something, about the Gibbon Roman Empire. And I'm probably a third of the way through. And this set, so I got this from the new bookstore that I'm going to. I am almost done. So volume 1, The Turn of the Tide. Volume 2, Constantine and the Christian Empire. Volume 3, The Revival and Collapse of Paganism. I'm almost done. I'm on the final chapter of this volume. Now, this is not the original way that Gibbon, there were 4 volumes that Gibbon did. So I'm probably halfway through volume 2 right now in the original set. But this is the Folio Society version. There they are there. So this is the Folio Society version, and these were published in the 80s. And they basically did one book every year throughout, I think it's like 84 to 92 or something. They published one of these every single year, and then they finally did one set. And they're beautiful books. And they all come with a map of what the Roman Empire looks like at the time. And something that's funny about this version is volumes 2 and 3, the maps are flipped. And I don't know if that makes it more valuable. I mentioned it to my mom. She's like, oh, maybe that makes them worth more because the maps are flipped. But here, I'll show you. So this is volume 2, Constantine. And yet the map is, you see there, it's 395 AD, which is after Constantine. It's actually the last year of Theodosius, which is what volume 3 ends with Theodosius. And then volume 3, as you see there, the Roman Empire during the reign of Constantine. So why would it be like that? So yeah, these are flipped. Volume 2 and 3, the maps have been flipped. And whatever, I've got all the volumes. I mean, I know the maps are flipped. It's okay. It's a little weird. But yeah, maybe that does make it more valuable. I don't know. But yeah, beautiful books. And there are 4 more books. So this is volumes 1 through 4, and then because they're not going to sell it, like, I don't think Folio would even. How heavy would the box be? The box would collapse if you did 4 more of these, right? So they released them in 2 sets, and frequently, I mean, you could go online and buy both sets, but they will always be in 2 boxes like this. And he just had 1 box, and he had 1 box for $40, so $10 a book, crazy. And he said that. He gets these in his bookstore every now and then. This bookstore that's like 40 minutes away. He says he gets them every now and then, and at one point he had 2 sets of each. So yeah, I will wait, and one day I'll get volumes 5 through 8 at my local bookstore. I was there today. I was looking at them. I actually took pictures of the maps. There are volumes 5, 6, 7, and there used to be 8, but somebody bought it. But they're not in a set. They are just loose. And so obviously somebody sold them the set, volumes 5, 6, 7, and 8, and they didn't have the box. So then the bookstore just decided to sell them all separately. There's $20 each. But I'm so glad that someone bought book 8, or else maybe I'd be tempted to complete my set, even though it doesn't have a box. I could get 5, 6, and 7, and 8. But I'm really glad I'm not going to do that because there's damage on one of the books. I think it's volume 7 has damage on like this part, like on the writing, and the writing on the writing on the spine here, it's like slightly off-centered as well. So I'm really glad that I'm not going to be tempted because somebody bought volume 8. I'm not going to be tempted to complete my set by buying those 4. And I'll just wait because I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep reading Gibbon, and when I'm finished with what is, you see me keep doing this. When I'm finished with what is in the Folio Society publication, volume 4, that's where I'll stop, and then maybe I'll wait until I can find the other set to keep going. But I'm not just reading Gibbon. Let's get into what I've been reading since I last talked to you guys in the beginning of the year, because I have read from I'm just past the death of Theodosius, so I'm looking up at my Roman Empire family tree. Around the year 400, 405, that's about where I am. So I've read about, I don't know, 220, or is it 320 years of history? No, 220, around 220 years of history in Gibbon Roman Empire. But I've read some other things. I've got some notes. So the segments for this episode, episode 5, we'll be going through the 3 books that I've read since, other than Gibbon, since I've last talked to you guys. And then the period in European history that I find interesting, we'll be talking about the 16th century, the 1500s. The 1500s, 16th century. And I'll get into why a little bit later, because one of the books heavily draws from the 16th century. Okay, so to start off, this is the first book that I'm talking to you guys about that I'm highly recommending to you, because I've read a lot of stuff. I'm not exactly just going to recommend somebody to read Gibbon's Roman Empire. It's written when America was still a colony, or like Churchill History of the English-speaking peoples. Like, hey, if you think you'd like it, great, then read it. But like, I'm not going to recommend that to just like the average Joe. But this book, I think if you're watching a history video on YouTube, I think you would really like this. This is Power and Thrones by Dan Jones. It rhymes, so it must be good, right? No, Dan Jones, he is a modern-day historian. From what I can tell, his first book was in like 2016, 2017, something like that. And he's publishing a book every year or two since then. He's done a lot of stuff on England. He wrote The Plantagenets, Henry V. He's also done stuff on the Crusades. And this book, Power and Thrones, is much more, it's not just kind of about one topic or a couple hundred years of history. It really is spanning all of the Middle Ages. That's what this book is about. It's about the Middle Ages from the year 300 to around 1500. And it covers pre-Middle Ages. It sets up some of the post-Middle Ages stuff. And I'm just going to kind of go through. I've got the table of contents here. So it starts, there's 4 sections to this book. The first one is Imperium. So this is around 300, kind of where I'm at in Gibbon Roman Empire, all the way to kind of the start of Charlemagne, I guess, in like the 800s. So there's 4 sections. It starts with the Romans, because the whole Middle Ages was set up by the Romans. So it starts with the Romans, just kind of sets that piece down and goes from there. And he just it goes at breakneck speeds. I think it even uses that term, breakneck speeds, in the preface. And each section goes by quick. It's I listened to the audiobook while I worked, and I probably got through the whole book in about 3 days. And each section, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Starts with the Roman Empire, then it goes into the barbarians that the Romans were fighting. All of this is kind of to set up what characters are at play during the Middle Ages. Then it goes into the Byzantines, and the Byzantines really were the first, like they were the peak of empire at the start of the Middle Ages, kind of in around maybe the 400s. And then it gets into the Arabs. We'll be talking about the Arabs a little bit later for another book that I read, and kind of the expansion of the Islamic Empire. Then part 2 is Dominion. So this gets into Charlemagne, the Franks, all the religious things going on during this time. The Crusades is how this section of the book finishes. Talks about the role of knights, the role of monks, because this was a really most of world history is a politically charged time. But I think when we think of the Middle Ages, we think of knights, we think of monks, we think of crusades, right? So this section, the years maybe 700s to 1200s, the big middle chunk of the Middle Ages, the peak of the Middle Ages, if you will, that is what this period is about. And he goes through all different times. He talks about Spanish knights to the British knights to the Frankish Empire, kind of the fall of the Byzantines, right? He'll have a topic, knights, monks, but then he'll relate it all over Europe. I'm not sure if I mentioned that this book is about Europe itself. I mean, it does touch on the Arabs, North Africa, kind of the eastern area, but it's not going to talk about India or China unless referencing to trade and stuff that relates to Europeans. Then it gets into rebirth, which is about 1200s to 1300s. You might think, wow, the last part was like 700 years. This part's only 100 years. That's because it's rebirth, right? This was the Mongols is how this chapter starts. The Mongols come in, wipe out a lot of what we know as being the Middle Ages. They get all the way up to Vienna, right? Like all the way into the center of Europe. Maybe not Vienna. Definitely Hungary. They take over Hungary, and I think they were kind of like the Ottomans. A little bit later, they get up to Vienna. And merchants is a huge part of this chapter, talking about the Italians, the Venetians, and how the rivers, the oceans, all around Europe. I mean, this was the peak of trade in the Middle Ages, turning into the modern period, because in a short 200 years, boats are going to be traveling around the world, trading all the way, from the Americas to China. And in the Middle Ages, though, this is where that really started going in the 1300s with the Venetian traders. He goes into then kind of just like the pillars of society, the builders and the scholars each have their own chapter, and the rise of universities. When I was in Europe this summer, I went to Bologna, and I didn't even know it was there until I got there, and I was looking up like sites to go see while I'm in Bologna for 6 hours. And the first university in Europe was in Bologna. So I went there. So cool. There's this all wood operating room. There's house crests everywhere. Because like if you went to this university, you're a high-ranking male from a noble family, most likely. So you have a house crest. So every student, every teacher would have a house crest on the wall somewhere, painted on the ceilings, and they're just everywhere, right? And there's this big Roman or a Holy Roman Empire eagle on the wall, and yeah, it was really, really cool. But it's talking about that period in time where universities and knowledge starts getting shared. And then into builders, there's a whole chapter on the builders and the cathedrals that, I mean, tons of these cathedrals were started in the 12 or 1300s and then weren't finished until like the 18 or 1900s with like modern building techniques, which is just fascinating. And then finally, part 4 is revolution. So that's 1300s to 1500s. And that is all about the Black Death is what it starts with, and kind of wipes out 60% of Europe. And then there's kind of a renewal. And finally, it ends with navigation, the beginnings of the conquests of America and sending all these ships out to America and going around the Cape of Good Hope. And then finally, it ends with the Reformation, Protestantism, Lutheranism, and really the main players of this final chapter are the Pope and Charles V. Because it ends, like the very, very last chapter of the book is the sack of Rome by the forces of Charles V. And that is what Dan Jones says is like the end of the Middle Ages. And I mean, the Middle Ages does not have a definitive ending, like that. There are people that say the fall of Constantinople in 1453 is the end of the Middle Ages. Dan Jones has it being the sack of Rome, nearly 100 years later, being the end of the Middle Ages. So, you could argue it's some of these points, but it definitely fades out, right? The Middle Ages fades out. And overall, fantastic book that just touches on all these different points of a huge section of history, about 1,200 years. So if you are maybe new to history, or you're not that deep into history, you like history, you watch some history videos on YouTube, you're watching this video right now, but like you're not really in the weeds of any particular aspect of history, read this book because it'll spark your interest. For me, I was like, oh, the Byzantine section I really liked. I'm very excited to get to the Byzantine Empire in Gibbon. The Arab section I really liked because I realized, I'm like, man, I really don't know much about Muhammad and his empire and the caliphates and stuff. Right, I really don't know about that. The navigation side near the end of the book, and then especially Charles V and his empire at the very end of the book. Because the next book I read, so there we go, Powers and Thrones. Hope you enjoyed that review. Really good. Would highly recommend it. The next book I read, let me get my notes up for that. Emperor, A New Life of Charles V by Jeffrey Parker. And so this is a autobiography about Charles V. If you don't know who Charles V was, he was the Holy Roman Emperor from 1519 to 1556, I think. And he was also, however, he was also at the same time and before the King of Spain from I think it's 1516 to 1556. And I'll put a picture up right here of the Useful Charts family tree here, and you could just see how powerful he was and how important he was to the Spain Holy Roman Empire. I mean, he controlled. Let's see if I can get all of them. He controlled all of the Holy Roman Empire, which was modern day Germany, some of France, Switzerland, Czech Republic, Czechia, probably all of Austria, then all of northern Italy, like Milan, Venice, that kind of area. Actually, there's a map right here, isn't there? there's Charles V there. That's him. So this was his empire here, and here's a map. I don't know. It's a little faded there. There's kind of glare, but all of Central Europe, basically what we would call Central Europe, and even some of France today, northern Italy, then Spain, even southern Italy, actually, everything of Italy except for like kind of Rome and central Italy, and then also the Spanish New World, which was like everything Mexico south. So he controlled like more land than, and the Netherlands, the Low Countries, Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg. So he controlled more land than like almost anyone in history. And so I had known so much about Charles V. I'd heard about him in so many different things. He reigned at the same time as Henry VIII in England, Francis I in France, some pretty important popes as well. So like it's just a really important period of history, and I just wanted to read a book just about him because he was almost like a side character showing up in other things I had read, and finally I just wanted to read something about him. So it starts with his young life. It was really cool to see not only Charles V, but Maximilian I, Philip I, his mother Joanna, Ferdinand and Isabel, the Catholic monarchs, his brother Ferdinand, in the future Philip II, all these kind of other characters that I've touched on in other books, but finally to see them by themselves in this one book, and them speaking with Charles V and how they related to his life and stuff, was really cool. So especially when he's young and he's not really a person yet, like they don't know much about him. He's just this little kid, and then these other players are all around him. So that's how it starts. Then it kind of goes into him becoming King of Spain, how he was living in the Netherlands. He lived in Ghent his whole childhood, and then he moved down to Spain when he became King of Spain. And he didn't actually go down there for like a couple of years after becoming king. And then he finally gets down there. It's hot. He doesn't like it that much. He ends up, growing accustomed to it. Then his grandfather, Maximilian I, is dying, and they need to elect a new Holy Roman Emperor, and it's between him and Francis I of France. And Charles V obviously gets elected, will eventually get his brother elected, and that starts him having this empire. And this was the first time that the the empire on which the sun never sets. Like that was the first time that this was used for Charles V's empire. The British would steal that. Shocker. I've used that joke before. So yeah, it goes through all of his global empire and his religious wars. I mean, so during his reign, Martin Luther begins the Reformation. All about the what are they called? It's the ability to just pay money to base absolutions. It's the ability to have to pay money and then have your sins absolved. And Martin Luther was like, that's stupid. Like, what? If you're richer, you could get your sins taken care of for you. Like, what? That doesn't make sense. God doesn't want that. Like, and then from there, Protestantism started, Lutheranism started, and Charles V was like the villain for early Protestants, right? Because he was the reigning Catholic monarch of two Catholic crowns, and goes into the conflicts of France. There's a couple major conflicts. He at one point captures Francis I, and Francis I is in Spain, in Madrid, as a captive, and then he finally lets him go back to France with all these, like, okay, but once you get back there, you have to do this, this, and this for me, and then he does nothing. He does none of it. There was a lot of that going on back in the day, where you would capture a king, but you can't kill a king because that's bad. It's again, God will hate you if you kill a king because it's a king chosen by God. So you tell him, okay, I'm gonna let you go, but when you get back home, you have to do this and this and this for me. And then they get back home and they say, that treaty doesn't count because I was under duress. And it's like, okay, damn, I guess I held you for nothing now. And so, and he also held his two sons, Francis I's sons, the eventual Henry II. And so that, like, later when Francis dies, now the King of France is this kid, not kid, I mean he's an adult now, but when he was a kid, Charles V like held him captive for years. Like it's pretty wild. There's also a whole thing where some ambassadors from, I think it was France, were killed by Charles V's people, and then Charles V lied under oath saying that he knew nothing about it when he clearly did. Like there's a whole thing about that. So this is the peak of his powers, and yeah, he was ruling the world. Then he gets into his downfall, his declining health. He had gout, like he was like so sick. He had major gout, and he ended up abdicating and going to live in a church, kind of as like a monk, in Spain. And abdications were rare. Like I can't think. I'm looking at my chart right now. I can't think of anybody before Charles V who was abdicating. Like, maybe there's some I don't know about, but like, I can't think of anybody that was like a ruler. And Charles V, like the ruler of the world, he abdicated. So kind of goes into that. He only lived for 4 years after he abdicated, and funnily enough, like a lot of people, even though he abdicated, a lot of people would still to his son Philip II be like, you're not really king. Like your dad's still alive. Like how can you be king if your dad's still alive? Because like it was just such a rare thing. Like for someone to become king, your dad has to die. You don't just become king if your dad's still alive. Right? Even though he abdicated, people were still just like, I don't know. Like I feel like he's still king. But he only lived 4 years after that. Also, learning more about Philip II, because a big chunk of this book in the later half is all the like letters from Charles V to Philip II, and it's really cool to learn a little bit more about the upbringing of Philip II, because I'm reading a book on the Spanish Armada. It's part of my collection. I don't have it here. It's at my girlfriend's place, but I'm reading the book on the Spanish Armada, and Philip II is, it's Elizabeth I versus Philip II, and to learn more about his upbringing and stuff through this book was really cool. And I said that the period in history that I find interesting, this episode, is the 1500s. This is all happening in the 1500s, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But finally, Charles V dies, and it kind of goes into his legacy and what's been left after him, and it kind of shows that like all the problems the Empire had during his time, like no one would have been able to do a better job than he did. Like he was the absolute best man for the job, and no one could have held it together the way he did. It was impossible to like sustain that size of an empire. And yeah, like just a great ruler. He was made to rule, and he did it. And what else can I say about him? He couldn't close his mouth. He was so inbred that he was always like this. So there you go. Next, I'll close the notes on those ones. Next up, we have a book that's actually behind me here. A History of the Arab People by Hurani. I am all the way into the end of this book, the afterword that was not written by Hurani. I'm all the way to there in this book, and yeah, so I've basically read this. Like I'm into the modern day stuff that was added after. History of the Arab Peoples. I've showed this book before. It starts with there's the Arab world, and this book, it feels much more like a textbook, like for a student who's learning. It's less of like a chronological order of things. I'll pull up the Albert Hurani is the man. So it's less of like chronological order. It is in chronological order, but it could do a whole 100 years of stuff and then just talk about different, like one topic in those 100 years. It doesn't go through the 100 years year by year. So, for example, it starts in the 7th century when Muhammad became a prophet. And so part 1, the making of a world. So goes through the formation of the empire, the Muhammad and his appearance in Islam, the caliphates in Damascus and Baghdad, how society was then formed through here, and what the Islamic world kind of became by the 8th and 9th century. Then the articulation of Islam, the question of authority, the power and justice of God, the path of reasons, the path of the mystics, right? It really goes into the core of his Islamic beliefs and like why it separated so quickly. We just talked about Protestantism. As someone in the Western world, as an atheist in the Western world, I understand the difference between Protestantism and I guess like Orthodoxy, Catholics, right? And it is similar. The Sunni Shia divide in Islam, it is similar, but what I found interesting was how early it happened. The Protestantism is only like, it's almost 500 years old. That's it. Protestants have been around for 500 years. The Sunni Shia divide happened 4, not centuries, not decades, 4 rulers after Muhammad. Muhammad was in the 600s. 4 rulers later, they divide. Sunni and Shia divide, right? That's crazy. Like, and it's been divided ever since. And basically, the divide started because of the succession. The Sunnis thought one person should be ruler. The Shias thought another person should be ruler, and then it went from there. So that's part 1, making of a world. Then it gets into Arab Muslim society. So the sections here are the Arab Muslim world, the countryside. So there's a lot about urban life and suburban life in this. The life of the city. So it's countryside and then the life of the city. Talking about the markets and cities, the populations, slaves' role in society, how the houses, this was really interesting, how the houses were designed, the way that every Islamic Arab house would kind of be 2 parts, and there's the part where the women live, and then the part where the men would have guests. It was almost like a guest house connected to the house. Also how there's always interior courtyards, not as many windows out, like a porch, you never have a porch. Stuff like that. So the way the houses were. The cities and the rulers, to kind of how the dynasties formed, right? Because very quickly, the Arab Empire, that map that I just showed you, all the way from Iberia to Iran, that empire only lasted a little while, and then it got split up into huge caliphates. So how different dynasties kind of took the role of Muhammad and the prophets, and how alliances worked between them, the political authorities. Then it goes into the ways of Islam, so the pillars of Islam. I think there were 5 pillars of Islam, and the friends of God. And then finally, so that is the 11th to 15th century. Then we get into part 3, and this is the part of the book I was most interested in, the Ottoman age, the 16th to 18th centuries. And I really want the next book, if I could snap my fingers and have one more book add to my collection, it would be the Folio Society Ottoman Empire by Lord Kinross. That I really want to read a book on the Ottoman Empire. I actually asked the guy when I went to the new bookstore and found Gibbon. I asked him, I'm like, hey, do you have this book, The Ottoman Empire by Lord Kinross? And he was like, no, I don't. So really wanting that one. The Ottoman Empire, the way the government worked and the succession, because they didn't take over Constantinople until 1453, but the Ottoman sultans were all the way from 1299 all the way until 1922. That's how long. So 700 years they were ruling, or short of it. So the Ottoman Empire and the government. Then it gets into the Ottoman society, the population and wealth of the empire, the provinces within the empire. If you don't know what the Ottoman Empire was, I mean, there's tons of maps and stuff in this, so hold on, let me find it. But it basically went from modern day Turkey, and that is what the Ottoman Empire became, Turkey, right? Like that, if you wanted what it became now, it became Turkey. So here we go. It'd be kind of hard to see, but it's this top one here. So that's the Ottoman Empire. So it was all of this going down the Red Sea here, a little bit over to like Qatar and stuff, and then northern Africa. All of that was the Ottoman Empire. And actually, at this point, it stretched all the way to like Algiers and Tunis, and then modern day Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, and then Egypt, Turkey, and Iraq. Kind of that's all what the Ottoman Empire was. So it goes into the age of the Ottomans. Let me get back to my page here. Then the changing balance of power. I did not know that, just like North America, British and France fucked up the Middle East. I knew that they did. Like, I knew that Iraq and Palestine, and like I knew that these countries had influence thrust upon them from France and the British. But reading this book, I was like, oh, like it's basically the same as North America. It really is. So part 4, the age of the European empire. So this is 1800 to the beginning of World War II. And so European powers and the reforming governments, so the reforming governments of the Ottoman Empire, and the expansion of Europe into the Gulf, the Arabian Peninsula, then European empires and the dominant elites, kind of limiting the independence of these countries. The partition of Africa, so the British obviously take over Egypt. France kind of take over the Maghreb, which is kind of northern Africa. They take over Algeria, right? Algeria was like a major French colony. Like it was straight up just part of France at one point, which if you look at a map, Algeria is just south of France across the Mediterranean. So it makes sense that that's where they would want to take over. Then the culture of imperialism and reform during this time, the kind of changing of society, of Arab society around now, the supremacy of Great Britain and France, and their interests in the in Arabia, what they wanted. They wanted oil, and they wanted trade and all this kind of stuff. And then the changing ways of life and thought. So this is a lot about like the changing of the way that Islam was thinking at this time, and the women's rights. They went from wearing coverings to not wearing coverings during this time. And finally, part 5, the age of the nation states. So this is since World War II. It starts with the Second World War, the independence of a lot of these nations from the French and British, the Suez Crisis to get the British out of Egypt, the Algerian War to get the French out of Algeria. Then it kind of starts talking about the rich and poor divide that happened around this time in the 40s and 50s, the increase of technology in the 50s and 60s, the disunity, the crisis of 1973, and how much changed really during this time. From the start of the Ottoman Empire all the way to now, things had advanced but not changed too much in Arabia, in Islam during this time, and now you kind of have the stability was kind of breaking down in all these regimes, and it ends by explaining just how much the Arabs have changed over the last what is it, 1,500 years. And so I learned so much from this book. I really did. I learned much more than I ever could have thought I would about the Arab populations, and it gives me a better idea because, it's easier to relate to people who have similar beliefs or live in a similar part of the world as you, or similar backgrounds, similar religions, similar whatever. And the Arab populations, even just how their society functions with the rights of women. In the last few years, women gained the right to drive in Arab countries, and it's that's what? So to read a book all about the entire history and how it grew and changed over time, and the influence that came in and out, and how they had peaks and valleys. The Arabian Golden Age was definitely the turn of the millennium, kind of the year 1000, around then, maybe a little bit later as well. That was kind of the Islamic Golden Age. And then was it around then? What? Hold on, I've got my timeline of world history here. Islamic Golden Age. I want to give an exact date here. Hold on, let me open up my huge ass chart. Yeah, we'll call it 800. It's kind of after, maybe not 1000, but 800, 900, around when Muhammad had set up the empire, but was gone, and it had been solidified for 100 years. Around then was the Islamic Golden Age. And then the second peak was definitely with the Ottoman Empire, right, in the 14, 15, 1600s, which you can see. Is it on here? No, the Ottomans, they're not on this, but yeah. So that is History of the Arab Peoples by Albert Hourani. Really liked it, and it was a bit more. It was a different structure to a history book than I'm used to. Something like Gibbon or Churchill here. It's much more year by year. This one is more. Century by century, but kind of topics within that century, which I did enjoy, because if I was writing a paper or studying about these topics, it'd be nice to just read about a topic during a certain time rather than just a stream of years. So now let's get into the period in history I find interesting. Pi Hi-Fi 4, I guess it'll be. We started Pi Hi-Fi 1 was the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Then we did the Romanovs, and then we did the end of the line of Capet in France. And now we are doing the 1500s as a century. Wow. Here we go. Okay, so why are the 1500s so special? First of all, I believe it is the first modern century. The Middle Ages ended, and the beginning of the modern age was in the 1500s. Will it always be called the modern age? No. One day we will have a different name for it. We call it the modern age now. But eventually, however many centuries in the future, we will not call it the modern age anymore, and we'll change the name. But it's the beginning of the modern age. It is. I guess I can show you my timeline of European history. So these are the 1500s right here, roughly there. You can see the power of the Habsburg dynasty. You can see the beginning of the Dutch Republic. You can see the French wars of religion in there. The Republic of Venice, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Other names that are coming to mind: Queen Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, defeated the Spanish Armada. William Shakespeare was a little bit later, not quite the 1500s. Hold on, I'll go with that because the mic is this way. What else we got? Michelangelo, the Council of Trent, Machiavelli, Martin Luther's 95 thesis, obviously. The Siege of Vienna by the Ottomans, the War of Protestantism, obviously I talked about that already. Ivan the Terrible, right? You've got all these things, and that's not to mention the beginning of the Spanish Empire in the Americas, the beginning of the Age of Discovery in general, and so the Age of Discovery, the religious upheaval with Protestantism, the centralizing of monarchies. Obviously, I talked about the Spanish and the Holy Roman Empire combining, the French gaining power, the rulers. I mean, come on, the rulers you got. I'm gonna look at my list here. We got Charles V, Maximilian I, Ferdinand and Isabel, right? The Catholic monarchs. You got Philip II. You've got Elizabeth I. You've got Henry VIII. Like, what a fucking lineup. Suleiman the Magnificent, Ivan the Terrible, Ivan the Great, Gustav Vasa. I went to the Vasa Museum in Sweden. Fucking amazing. It's the big boat that sank in the Stockholm Harbor and they trenched it up. The Iberian Union and the Kalmar Union are in this time. The Bohemia and Hungary become one thing and then combined with the Habsburgs. That's what's so crazy about Charles V, is how in a matter of 3 generations, Maximilian I gained the crowns of the Low Countries from his wife, the Duchess of Burgundy, and then Aragon and Castile combined, so now that's Spain, and then Maximilian became the Holy Roman Empire, so he rules not only the Low Countries but the Holy Roman Empire as well. And then Charles V gets Spain and the Holy Roman Empire, which is also the Low Countries now, and Spain has all of the New World and like southern Italy as well. And then Ferdinand I, his brother, gets the crowns of Hungary and Bohemia from his wife as well. So like all in the matter of like 3 generations, all of these crowns combine, and suddenly you lose like all these different kingdoms that join other kingdoms. It's just crazy shit. And then the Iberian Union with his son, who did not become Holy Roman Emperor, right? His son Philip II became just the King of Spain, and then he got Portugal as well. Imagine if he had become Holy Roman Emperor. And then on the other side of things, you've got the Kalmar Union, which was Norway, Sweden, Denmark, all being one. So all of Scandinavia was one country as well. So just crazy things. You got I mentioned the New World. You got the conquest of the Incas. You got the conquest of the Mexicans. You've got the whole just like silver and gold and everything coming to Spain from the New World, these monarchies and stuff, and that is all just in Europe, right? Like that's just in Europe alone. And I know that Asia was doing stuff. I can't really talk about that. And here we got Leonardo da Vinci. I didn't mention as well. That's another. I wrote his name down. And then for wars, okay, here's the wars. Wars of Revolution. I said the Dutch Revolt, Spanish Armada, Catholic. Yeah, okay, I kind of got all I got all the wars just by reading off that. So yeah, I don't really. I mean, I'm reading so many different books about the 1500s right now. Obviously, the Arab book, touches on the 1500s, and it's about all of Arab civilization. It's gonna have a part about the 1500s, but the Charles V book is entirely in the 1500s. The Spanish Armada book entirely in the 1500s. And then Powers and Thrones ends in the 1500s. So I've read so many different books about this time, and I kind of just, I don't really have like I'm talking about this century. I don't really have like a one thing to talk about. It's kind of just all of that. And if I had to write a paper or something on one century, it would be the 1500s, no question. Just the stuff that goes on, the characters you have, the wars you got. It's all so interesting. And man, like I wish there was like a movie just about the 1500s or something, because it's just so much is going on. And yeah, so I think that's it. I think that's all I got for you guys today. That was a little bit of a haul. You might notice, if I go back here, I think I have to go down a little bit. There are 2 books on this shelf that I've not showed you. So they will be in the haul next time. I just didn't want to do 5 books in the haul. So there's 2 more books in the haul there. And then talking about Gibbon, I'll be reading more of him soon. And probably when I get to the end of that 4th volume, I'll stop and read some other stuff for a while. And then those are the things I read. I highly recommend Powers and Thrones by Dan Jones. The book on Charles V by Jeffrey Parker was great. And then the History of the Arab People was fantastic as well. Glad to have, I'm reading, I've read 3 of these. I've read these 4. I've read this, and I started this, and I'm reading the Spanish Armada as well, which is at my girlfriend's place. So I'm just going to pull up my Audible just to tell you what, other than Gibbon, what else I'm reading. Obviously, I'm not started anything at the moment, but on my list, it's on sale right now, so I might bite on that. It is Iron Kingdom by Christopher Clark, and that's about Prussia from 1600 to 19, like World War II. So I might get that. I've got Henry V by Dan Jones on there as well. The Templars by Dan Jones. The Hollow Crown, which is about the Wars of the Roses by Dan Jones. The Ottomans by Mark David Baer. The Peter the Great by Robert K. Massey. And then the India, A History by John Kay as well. Those are kind of all on my radar. But I'm gonna focus on Gibbon for a while, and then I'll probably take a break, read a couple other books before coming back to Gibbon, kind of like I did over the last 6 weeks to a month, to 2 months. Thanks for watching episode 5 of History with Salty B. Hope you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you in episode 6. Probably in the spring. Let's go. Thanks for watching. I'm okay. What's up? Goodbye.